Welcome back to Classic Car TV, everyone. Today's focus is the Lotus Esprit V8. Now, the Esprit's always been a dream car, an accessible supercar. It's appeared in movies, Bond movies, For Your Eyes Only, The Spy Who Loved Me, and of course famously in Pretty Woman. My Esprit experience started in 1994. My brother was a Lotus salesman at the time. He worked for Colmore in Birmingham, Rydale, Storm in Leicester. Heck, at one time he was the UK's top selling Esprit salesperson and even won a sales competition, was taken to Daytona 500 by Lotus. Bit of a hero at the time. Well, one day Nigel gave me a demo in a bright red Esprit S4, which I took for a drive through the centre of Birmingham. I really enjoyed the drive, but the other factor was that the effect it had on people was just amazing. One guy even fell off the pavement looking at the car as I drove past. At around that time I was also doing a bit of racing, and I did a track day for some of my sponsors at Mallory Park. Now, Nigel was good enough to bring a car along, and what did he bring but a Sport 300. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but that car was about to become my all-time favourite Lotus and one of my all-time favourite cars, full stop. The Esprit Sport 300 is just amazing, and I hammered it around Mallory Park all day on that day. We weren't supposed to let his bosses know we did that. There was then a bit of a gap in my Esprit history, but recently I've done quite a bit of driving in Esprits. But what is the Esprit V8 story? The Esprit was first revealed in 1975, but several generations later Lotus launched the Esprit V8 in 1996. The car came equipped with Lotus in-house developed Type 918 V8 engine. This is a 3.5 litre, all aluminium 90-degree, double overhead cam, 4-valve per-cylinder V8 with a flat plane crankshaft, which we'll come back to, and 2 Garrett T25 turbochargers. Unlike previous 4-cylinder Esprits, there was no charge cooler. The transaxle used was the same Renault unit as before, but upgraded by Lotus. It was hanging on to that gearbox and transaxle that probably proved to be the V8 Esprit's biggest shortcoming. In order not to cause damage to the gearbox, the engine was detuned so that instead of providing the 500 brake horsepower that it could have done, it only put out 350. Now 350 is not bad, but this could have been a 500 brake horsepower car in the 90s. But don't be under any illusions, the Esprit V8 is a very fast car. Road tests at the time saw it reach 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds with a standing quarter mile of 12.7 and a top speed of 175 miles an hour, although some claim it was 179 miles per hour. In 1998, the Esprit V8 range was changed slightly in that we had the SE, like this car, and the GT model, though the performance was very similar. The SE obviously concentrated a little bit on luxury, and the GT was a little bit lighter and sportier. The ultimate incarnation of the V8 Esprit was the Sport 350. There were thinner body panels, AP racing brakes, stiffer springs and a large carbon fibre rear wing on aluminium uprights. This car is the one owned and then sold by Richard Hammond to help fund his smallest cog business. But let's focus a little more on this particular car. This is a 1998, so it's 27 years old. Now, we all know that by the time they're 27 years old, a lot of classics are pretty rubbish to drive. Is that true of the V8 Esprit, or is it a decent car today? We'll look at that. But you're probably wondering why there are 2 McLarens in the background, a 720S and an MP412C. People who watch the channel regularly, or subscribed, and I hope you are, might recognise the Volcano orange car as the very car that featured in an earlier movie of mine, which was titled Is the MP412C Undervalued? Now, in that movie, which I'll provide a link to, we featured the car's designer Frank Stephenson, Dean Lanzante and Alistair Bowles. But why are they here today? And that's because I've been thinking there's quite a lot of similarities between these cars, and I wonder if in fact the Esprit could be said to be a forerunner of McLaren's road car range. We know that there was some knowledge transfer between Lotus and McLaren over the years. Think about it. They are all British built, two-seaters, mid-engine with flat plane crank V8 engines and very nice hydraulic steering. When you drive the 720S back-to-back with the MP4 12C, it feels more sophisticated, there's more power, more tech. It's probably a little bit easier to live with day to day. And that's exactly where we are with the V8 Esprit as well. Compared to the four-cylinder cars, this is faster, it's more comfortable, and it feels more sophisticated, which I guess is exactly what Lotus would have wanted. So let's see what it's like to drive, shall we? So the driving experience of an Esprit V8 today. What is it like? Well, it's certainly fast. Just give it a little squirt here. There's no way that you could say that this car doesn't hold its own in today's traffic. With 350 brake horsepower and weighing 1,330 kilos, you would expect it to be fast. The one thing you can't get away from though is that although this engine is efficient, if perhaps not as powerful as it could be, it doesn't sound great. It never has done. And this is something that the car does have in common with other cars that have flat plane cranks, like the McLarens, for example. They just don't sound great. Let's squirt it again. Yeah, it goes all right. It just doesn't sound like a high revving Ferrari or something else like that. And what about the other controls? Well, the clutch is reasonably heavy, if not unbearable. The gear change is a little notchy. You might call it a little bit obstructive, but it's not that bad. You really get used to it. And once you've driven the car for a while, you can make pretty smooth gear changes without even really thinking about it. From a practicality point of view, and comfort for that matter, the car's pretty good. I'm 6 foot and I just about fit in here. If it had an extra inch or two of legroom, I'd be happy, but at the same time I've driven this car some fair distances and not become uncomfortable at all. Now the funny thing about that is I've driven distances in other Esprits, and I'm thinking a GT3 in particular, and while you think that they were identical, I have actually suffered cramp in my legs in driving the GT3 over a long distance. Not this one at all, so far anyway. So what about the handling? Well, it's pretty good. You probably remember back to the road test of Esprits in the day. Maybe you do, I certainly do. And there was talk about how an Esprit would flow down the road. Well, it's true, it does even today. The hydraulic steering in this car is absolutely delightful, and the ride's pretty good as well. So yeah, it does flow down the road. Brakes, pretty powerful, never had any issue with those at all. And from a practicality point of view, the car's pretty good as well. Now you've got a glove box, you've got a cubby inside the car, and the boot's pretty good. As I'm travelling at the moment, I have a bootload of camera gear, and it all fitted into the back of this car with no problem at all. One thing to bear in mind when you're driving an Esprit is the footwell is really tight. I can't wear normal shoes in this car. I have to wear my little Sparco racing shoes. Anything like a normal pair of shoes, or for God forbid a pair of boots, and it's pretty damn dangerous, I have to tell you. Of course, you don't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in an Esprit, although I'm sure somebody has a solution out there. But with a decent phone holder and today's mobile devices, you got pretty much everything you need, and there's certainly no reason why I would hesitate to take on a long journey in an Esprit V8. I doubt that you'll be able to hear it on the cameras in the car, but for those people that like that sort of thing, there is a delightful whoosh as the turbos spool up in this car. One more thing to think about is tyres. They've been a bit of a problem for Esprit owners for some time. When the tyres on this car were replaced, there was only one option if the tyres were to be the same brand all around. And even then there was a slight difference in the tread pattern front to back. The car is currently on Yokohama Advanced Sports. 235/45 R17s on the front and 285/35 R18s on the back. A reason to believe that recently some more options might have become available, but it's worth checking. So let's agree that the Esprit is a great car, but should Lotus be building a new Esprit today, or is it just completely lost down the electric car rabbit hole? I remember the excitement in 2010 when then CEO Danny Bahar announced a raft of new Lotus cars, a new Elite, Elise, Elan, a four-seater called an Eterne, and yes, a new Esprit. It all seemed very fanciful, and it turned out to be the case. The one thing Bahar probably did get right was that in the future, Lotus dealers would close. So what's been going through my mind is, does McLaren today occupy the same part of the enthusiast market that Lotus used to occupy? So I suppose we should wrap up by answering the main question. Does the Esprit V8 still cut it as a viable classic today? Is it a car that you'd want to own and drive as well as just look at? Well, yeah, in my opinion you would, because the car still looks very beautiful, it's very fast, it handles well, and it's really comfortable. I drove this 100 miles today and got out of the car at the end of the day with no aches and pains at all. And say this quietly, but they're holding their value as well, or even edging up. They used to be in the 40,000s, but now a good V8 Esprit will be in the 50,000s and perhaps even more for a very special car, and especially in the USA. Even at this price level, I think they're very good value. So if you want a beautiful car that's going to attract attention wherever you go and that you're going to enjoy driving, yes, think seriously about an Esprit V8. If you want to know more about Esprits in general, make sure you're subscribed, because we've got another film coming up soon which takes us back through the history of the Esprit and involves several people who were at the company and involved with the Lotus range at the time, including the man who actually sold this car new to its first owner. So thanks for watching, see you soon.